Check audio. Test one, two, three.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Councillor Keenan. Can you unmute your mic and test your audio for us, please?
Councillor King, just checking in.
Perfect. You're coming through clear. Councillor Tour, can you test your audio, please?
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. You're coming through clear.
Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to our meeting of Brampton's Audit Committee. We have all members present today, but I'll ask the clerk to confirm.
Through you, Chair Vicente, I believe I'm just waiting for Councillor Palashi and Councillor Brar to join online. Oh, I see. I see Councillor Palashi now. Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Brar will be joining us shortly.
Okay, so we now have quorum. Our next item is approval of the agenda. Does any member wish to add a business item to today's meeting? Seeing none, I have a motion moved by Member Russell. All in favor, any opposed? That carries. Do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter to be considered on today's agenda? Seeing none, the clerk will so note for the meeting minutes. Committee, as part of our consent motion process, I will read each agenda item that is subject to the consent motion, and any member may verbally identify the item to be held for debate during the meeting. Any item not held for debate will be considered as part of the consent motion and voted for approval. I'll begin by reading the relevant agenda items, and members can identify any items to be held for debate. We will be holding item 6.1, staff report on road resurfacing report, for presentation. Item 6.2, staff report on fire fleet asset management 2024 audit report, will also be held for presentation. Next, I have item 6.3, staff report, internal audit work plan status update Q4 2024 in consent. Item 6.4, staff report on corporate ethics hotline quarterly report Q4 2024 on consent. Item 6.5, staff report internal audit strategy report, held by Member Russell. Item 7.1, the KPMG audit plan for the 2024 fiscal year, will be held for presentation. Item 11.1, closed report for cybersecurity audit 2024, will also be held for presentation. I'll now ask the clerk to summarize the items to be included in the consent motion prior to approval of the motion.
Through you, Chair, there are two items on the consent motion. 6.3, internal audit work plan status update Q4 2024, and 6.4, corporate ethics hotline quarterly report Q4 2024.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Keenan to approve the consent motion. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. We will now begin with our presentation for item 5.1, presentation by Maria Kushnud, the lead audit engagement partner at KPMG, regarding the KPMG audit plan for the 2024 fiscal year. Welcome, Maria.
Good morning, and thanks for having me here. I see the report is up. So I'll take you through this report. This is our first report of two. We present two reports to you. One is our audit planning report. The second is audit findings report. Audit findings is at the end, the completion of our audit, where we come back to you with any findings that came through as a result of our audit. And this is audit planning report, which is just to give you an idea of some of our planning decisions and planning items. So I'll start on page 4 of the report, which provides you with some highlights related to the audit engagement. And I'll cover some of them in more detail in the next few slides. The only thing I'll highlight on this slide is that there's no involvement of another KPMG member firm or any non-member firm as part of this audit engagement. Everything is done by our GTA private enterprise audit team at KPMG. Moving on to page 5. So page 5 highlights the new accounting and auditing standards that are effective for the current year. There are three new accounting standards that are coming into effect for fiscal 2024, including PS 3400, which is revenue, PS 3160, which is public-private partnerships, and PSG 8, which is purchased intangibles. We're currently working with management to assess the impact of these accounting standards on the financial statements of City of Brampton, but our preliminary assessment indicates that the impact would be limited. There's one new auditing standard, which is coming into effect this year, which is our CAS 600 Group Auditing Standard, which brings more stringent requirements for auditors in performance of group audits, which is another terminology for consolidated audits. There are implications from this standard for the audit team, not so much for City of Brampton or management. Moving on to pages 6 and 7. So pages 6 and 7 cover materiality, which is an important topic for this audit. Materiality is the amount that we calculate to scope our procedures, derive sample sizes, and also to assess any misstatements that are identified during the course of the audit, whether they're corrected or uncorrected. This amount is calculated as 27.2 million, which is based on 2.5% of total forecasted revenue. So if we could flip over to the next slide, you can see the amount up there. The benchmark and applied percentage is consistent with prior year, so there's no change there. There is another threshold, which is called the audit misstatement posting threshold. That's set at 5% of materiality, so that comes to around 1.36 million. And that's the amount which we use if there are any errors or adjustments that are identified during the course of the audit. If they're higher than that amount, we are required to communicate them to this committee. In addition to that, if there are any errors or adjustments that are identified that are of unusual nature or fraudulent nature, even if they're below our audit misstatement posting threshold, we still bring them forward to this committee. Moving on to page 8. So page 8 lists our specialists that are involved for the purpose of this audit. And the city management involves their specialist, and it's for the same purpose, which is our employee future benefit liability that is reported on the books of City of Brampton. Moving on to page 9, we cover here the scoping of other audits that are involved in the consolidated entity, including the entities that are listed in Note 1. These entities that are listed in Note 1, these are smaller entities. They are not considered to be significant for the purposes of the consolidated audit opinion that we issue for the consolidated statements. However, there are separate statutory audits that are completed for these two entities just to meet the stat requirement. Moving on to page 10. So here we've covered our fraud risk from management override of controls, which is a presumed fraud risk that is required to be considered for all of our audit engagements. This is not specific to City of Brampton. It is a requirement from our Canadian auditing standards to consider for all engagements, all audit engagements. And that's due to the unique position that management is in to be able to perpetrate fraud by overriding controls that otherwise appear to be operating effectively. To address this risk, we complete a set of procedures that are noted on this slide. So testing of journal entries, retrospective review of estimates, and evaluating business rationale for any significant unusual transactions. Also, testing of journal entries is one of the main procedures to address that. Moving on to page 11, here we cover the fraud risk from fraudulent revenue recognition. Based on our understanding of the streams of revenue at City of Brampton, this risk has been limited to the revenue that is recognized from deferred revenue obligatories. And for that, we test at a higher risk, meaning we test more samples, we do more work, we perform test of design and implementation over controls and whatnot. Pages 12 to 17 provide you with an overview of some of our procedures related to other areas of focus. I'm not planning on covering them in detail, so I'll move on to page 18, which includes our standard inquiries. So this is a requirement from our auditing standards, again, to have that touch point with those charged with governance. We have completed these inquiries with your management and treasurer, but if there's anything else that is on anybody's mind, please feel free to connect with me separately. And we can move on to the next page, which is our timelines. So these timelines have been discussed with management, and they're in line with the audit committee timelines. At this stage, we're busy working through our interim audit procedures, and I do want to say a big thank you to management for supporting us to complete a purposeful interim. And with that, we get into the appendices. So we've included some valuable pieces of information. We've curated them specifically for the city in terms of what's relevant for you. So I'll leave them for your read, but if there are any questions, I'll pause here and happy to address.
Thank you very much, Maria, for that presentation. Do any members have questions? We can bring forward item 7.1 now as well. Great. I guess you did an amazing job explaining all the details. So we have a motion moved by Councillor Tour to receive the presentation and approve the report. All in favor, any opposed? That carries. Our next item is item 6.1, staff report titled Road Resurfacing Audit 2024 Report. We have a presentation from staff, which you can receive before considering the report itself.
First, I would like to introduce the audit team is Brad Cecile, audit manager, and Min Peng, lead internal auditor. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the staff from Capital Works who worked closely with the internal audit team. It's Sunil Sharma, director of Capital Works, Atkan Suvalin, manager construction, Pankaji Kohali, senior supervisor, construction, Kim Durkin, business advisor, Capital Works, Vishnu Parajuni, manager, engineering, Chris Wooten, manager, technical service, support services. Capital Works staff are attending the meeting in person here in this chamber. And now I would like to pass to Brad to present the audit background, objectives, scope, conclusion, followed by Sunil, who will present the management action plans. Brad, please take it over from here.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Like Claire mentioned, I will be co-presenting the road resurfacing audit presentation with Sunil Sharma, the Director of Public Works. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide. So the main objectives of the road resurfacing audit were to assess if road resurfacing activities comply with provincial standards, internal standard operating procedures, and contract terms while verifying fairness in the bidding process and effective project planning. It was also to assess whether material testing and contractor payments were completed properly. And finally, to evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of managing 311 service requests. The audit scope covered road resurfacing activities from January 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2024. The audit methodology included reviewing policies and standard operating procedures, interviewing staff, conducting site visits, performing sample testing and data analytics, and benchmarking with other municipalities. In conclusion, this audit identified key areas for improvement in the city's road resurfacing practices, including on-site road condition assessments, material testing practices, contractor insurance and vendor evaluations during warranty periods, project tracking, and service request management. Implementing the 6 recommendations in this report will strengthen processes, reinforce quality control, and ensure responsible use of resources, all of which are essential for maintaining the city's infrastructure and delivering high-quality services to residents. Now I will pass it over to Sunil, and he will speak to each of the 6 management action plans.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Thank you very much, Claire and her team, for putting this report together. It's been a big opportunity for Capital Works to learn and basically identify the gaps we have at this point throughout the road resurfacing project. So I'm very much thankful for Claire and her team, Brad and Min, to work with Capital Works staff on this project. So I'll go with the management action plan one by one. The first one is implement standardized process for on-site condition assessments. For addressing this issue, I think the Capital Works staff will enhance the current standard operating procedure, contract administration procedures by detailing the process for selecting streets for road resurfacing program. This update will include an appendix with the required forms for conducting on-site condition assessments. If required, training will be provided to any new staff as per the onboarding process. And the timing we're looking at maybe Q3 2025 for this first action management action plan. Next one, please. The second observation made by the audit committee was for monitor testing completion and frequency of material testing for quality control of concrete and asphalt. Capital Works will follow the material testing consultant's frequency chart to monitor the sufficiency of test and receipt of material testing results related to concrete and asphalt. Staff will ensure the results of all material testing companies are received in time and meet the quality standards. For this, we are looking for Q2 2025 for completion of this particular activity. Next slide, please. The third item on the management action plan is for standardized insurance verification for contractors during warranty period. Capital Works will update the bid document in collaboration with insurance and risk management staff, conducting a cost benefit to assess the financial impacts prior to including it in the tender documents, and ensure a valid certificate of insurance is in place prior to any site visits. Just for the committee, I would like to mention here that in most likelihood, the contractors on site we had the valid insurance certificate because they are working on the projects for different municipalities and the city too. So there's a possibility that the staff did not ask for that certificate during warranty period. For this one, I think we're looking for Q2 2025 for completing these independent documents. Hopefully, we can even do it before that for ongoing tender for next 3 years in early 2025. The fifth item on the management plan is implement centralized tracking for uncommitted roads. Capital Works will incorporate a separate section within the existing SOP, contract administration procedures, that includes tracking uncompleted resurfacing projects, documenting reasons for delays, and incorporating them into the future rehabilitation programs. This update will include an appendix with the required forms for tracking uncompleted roads. So we don't miss it, we carry it forward based on the budgets and the conditions of the road. The timeline for this enhancement of the SOP would be Q3 2025. And the last item we have on the management plan, establish a standardized process to manage service requests. Capital Works will update the existing service request guidelines to create a new SOP to define the roles and responsibilities of Capital Works staff in handling service requests for all capital projects. Training will be provided to new staff as per the onboarding process. For this one, we're looking for Q2 2025. With that, I'll give it back to Brad and
Okay, thank you, Sunil. In terms of next steps, like Sunil mentioned, action plans have now been developed, implementation is underway, and internal audit will follow up and report on the status of these action plans starting in Q2 2025. That concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brad, and to Public Works staff. I have Councillor Keenan on the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, great presentation, appreciate it. And last week at council, we got an update that we were going to go for 2 years over 1 year for the contract for resurfacing roads. But given the fact that we're saying we can't complete some of these issues that we found until Q2 or 3 in 2025, is there a reason that we can't complete them sooner?
Through the chair to Councillor Keenan, yes, we can definitely try to do it. This is more like an exhaustive list we have prepared, but we'll try to incorporate almost 80 to 90% of the comments we have made in the management plan in the next tender going out.
Right. So some of the issues that audit has found, especially when it comes to insurance, we put a date of Q2 2025. I feel that's something that we can do now. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Keenan, yes, we can definitely try that. And I can assure the committee we'll try to incorporate the Q2 ones into the next tender going out. Thank you.
Yeah, so insurance, certificate of insurance is simple, and it's obviously something that we need to do to make sure the municipality is protected. So that's an easy document to maintain, so I would feel that's something that should be done right away. Other than that, I'm good, so thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Member Russell.
Through you, Chair. First of all, I just want to commend the audit team on the new report format. I really appreciated that, and also have a new appreciation for the road resurfacing process as well. I do have a follow-on question kind of related to what Councillor Keenan was asking about with respect to insurance. I'm wondering if there's I think it seems to me from the report that there's kind of a central contract administrator who maintains the insurance. Is that correct? The insurance documentation?
That's correct, yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for what I'll call an upstream control, where there's a review done at the contract administrator's office to check to see, okay, I've got this contract in place, do we have the insurance documents? Because I feel like a similar issue came up, I want to say last year, with respect to this kind of documentation. So just wondering if, in addition to the controls being proposed to be put in place, kind of at the working level, if an upstream control might be of benefit.
Through the chair, citizen member Russell, you're correct. Last year we had a report called Claims Management Report, and it also talked about insurance but that's for the entire city, for everything. So in this particular case, we also consulted with our insurance risk manager, Jonathan Brewer. I'm not sure if he's online, but when we spoke to him, so the city actually, we had insurance during the project. It's just during the warranty period. There's like a 2-year warranty period that staff did not obtain the certificate of insurance. So when we spoke to him, he said in all likelihood that the contractor actually had insurance. It's just the city didn't go bother obtain it. And the reason that they already had, a lot of times that the insurance is not by company. It's just for the entire year they would obtain it. It's a lump sum one. And if the city wants it, the city just need to add the name to the insurance. So we did speak to Jonathan Brewer, and I guess you're asking if also from Jonathan's point of view, from the city's risk management point of view, in addition to capital works, would we have a procedure there just to make sure that we all have that, right? I think the follow-up though, in terms of obtaining the insurances, you're going to perform capital works site.
Sorry, can you repeat that last
I'm
part?
just saying that in terms of obtaining the certificate of insurance, it will still be from the divisions, city divisions, who's doing the work. Because,
Yeah, understood.
Right.
It was just more, should there be a request from the central team? Yeah.
Right. But one thing I want to talk about is the city didn't used to have enterprise risk management, the ERM system, but they've just established it. So every division is being asked to highlight, proposed risk registers for each of the divisions. And I imagine with this process being mature, developing into something maturity at the city will be better protected in terms of all of these aspects, including the insurance, obtaining the insurance and maintaining the insurance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also want to just express my thanks to the audit team for doing this very careful work, but also want to just commend staff for having had the opportunity to present their response to the findings of the audit. And I think it's very important that, and I know that audit always provides that opportunity for staff to review audit findings and to have an opportunity to respond. And I think as part of, and Member Russell mentioned that, we appreciated the fact that we have both presented here at the same time. So in addition to receiving the audit and the recommendations that we have here before us, I'd also just like to ask members if it would be our wish going forward that we always have, if there is a staff response to an audit, that response be included within the report itself, not as a separate document within the agenda. And so I'm going to ask the clerk just to put up a motion that we would consider at this time as well. And the salient portion would be it resolved that the internal audit adopts an updating reporting format that incorporates management action plans and responses directly within the main body of the audit report, immediately following each audit finding and recommendation, and furthermore that this revised format shall be implemented by the first audit committee meeting of 2025 or thereabouts. Just gives members a chance just to look at that motion. But if I see no questions, would you like to move that? Okay, so that is both the receipt of the report and the recommendations and the motion moved by Member Russell. All in favor, any opposed? That carries. Our next item is item 6.5, a staff report titled Internal Audit Strategy Report. This was held by Member Russell. The floor is yours.
Thank you, through you, Chair. First of all, I want to commend the internal audit team for a very comprehensive and well thought out document. It was much appreciated. Did have a couple of questions on the report. If I go to page 10 of the report for your SWOT analysis, one of the opportunities or weaknesses there was suboptimal use of the audit software currently, and I know that's one of the goals is to reconfigure that software. Will IT support be required and resourcing be required to enable that, and what are the steps in order to get that process underway?
Yes, Member Russell through the chair. So for this particular project, it's been, I think we tendered it in May, and then we worked very closely with purchasing, and it is now under exclusion D because they are very specialized firms. So we do have within IT, we do have two members that constantly work with us to support our audit software, Min Goy and I think was Raji, right? And they are supporting us, but they also support all the other audit software. Now, in order to reconfigure, we also hired consultants who specialize in all the audit process and mapping it and then put it into the system. We also work with the vendor who provided the Patena software at the same time. But the vendor doesn't really respond as much as we would like them to do because they have a lot of clients. So I don't think we're going to needing any extra help from IT, just the normal way they support us. And then we have our consultants, and between us and the consultants and Patena vendor, we can get this done. You know, we're expecting the bulk of the work will be finished by February, March-ish, and it'll be in time for us to comply with the standards before the IIA people coming back to do our external quality assessment in August.
Thank you. I have some additional questions, Chair. So through the Chair, on page 11, one of the other items mentioned, second paragraph, was lack of ongoing fraud awareness training. I wanted some clarity as to who that was in reference to. Was it to the internal audit staff or more broadly, city staff?
It's the latter. It's the more broadly for the entire city. So I would like to give a little bit of an update on this one. So every single quarter, when we wrote a fraud and waste hotline report, now we call them the ethics hotline report, we talk about that the city staffed the ethics hotline. The city went out and, kind of obtained a service. It's a third-party service from Clearview, right, for intake. But after the intake, the city hasn't really staffed to manage this ethics hotline. So we didn't have anybody to manage it. And when I came on in July 2022, we had a lot of activities to to align with the standards. So that hasn't really been, there hasn't been a dedicated efforts to the ethics hotline, and that's been pointed out by the gap assessment. In order for us to do a citywide employee fraud training, we would need to have some basic resources to work on that. So that was one of the, we requested one additional lead internal auditor. 20% of that auditor is dedicated to manage the ethics hotline this year.
Thank you. And I think I have just one further question through the chair, and it's on page 17. Related to your proposed metrics, item number 2 on proposed additional metrics to enhance audit quality and impact was confirming implementation status of management action plans. And I think the targets look reasonable to me, but what was unclear to me was the time horizon, because we know it often takes time for these to be implemented. I know this is a 3-year strategic plan, so I was just wondering if you had a time horizon in mind for when you were hoping to meet these targets.
Okay. Again, Member Russell, through the chair, the timeline, the reason we don't have a specific time is ongoing. The reason is from now on, because the gap assessor has really highlighted for us, this is one of the shortcomings of our operations right now, and also we don't have any extra resources to follow up on recommendation. So that's also one of that additional requests, the lead internal auditor. 40% of that lead internal auditor is going to provide capacity for us to follow up on all of the recommendations that we issue. Now, when we spoke to our quality assessor in August, she had mentioned, she said, obviously we don't, that 40% is not going to add capacity for us to address every single audit recommendation come out from our report. So what we had discussed is, our findings have a rating with it, right? Right now you see a low, medium, and high. And what we've agreed on is all of the medium and high risk finding that the recommendation associated with those findings need to be monitored on an ongoing basis. So that means we're not changing our practice. Right now we're doing a quarterly update report on management action plan, correct, on the implementation status. Right now we don't really validate any of the management action plan. We just take what management told us, tell us as it is, right? If they said they've implemented it, we assume it's implemented, we report it to audit committee. But in the future, we were told we have to monitor, actually validate the implementation status of the high-risk findings. Mm-hmm. And from our point of view, I think 40% won't cover all of the medium. So I'm saying that 50% of the medium-rated findings, those recommendations will also be monitored. So we will be reporting back on an ongoing basis. You'll hear from us again on quarterly basis, but we'll have a report actually tell you that we validated this, these are true, or we sometimes will point out, I think, maybe management said they have implemented, we think that maybe 70-80% is implemented. We'll give that actual rates to you from now on a quarterly basis.
Awesome. So it sounds like that means a lot's riding on this additional resource, so
it
based
is.
on your feedback. So what is the status on that?
Well, we haven't really gone to the end of the budget season this year. I believe the budget season is a little bit delayed compared to the past few years. I believe the last day for the budget to be approved is January 29th. I would really highly urge all of our audit committee members to support that one additional lead auditor, because I think as staff, we've really worked as hard as we could to bring us the compliance. We really just need that one additional lead auditor to go forward. One of the reasons that we need that internal auditor is currently we produce maybe 7 to 8 audits a year, because it takes 2 staff for 4 months to produce an audit if you want the audit to be of somewhat of a quality, right? And the only way for us to address doing recommendation follow-up, and also there's another piece that we need to do is actually measure us against the standards on an ongoing basis. And that was also pointed out by GAP. That's the other 40%. So 40%, 40%, 20%. That's the one lead internal auditor, right? And the only other way for us to achieve this and satisfy the external auditor of us would be to bring down the annual audit work plan. That's really not recommended because right now, if you look at the city, we have 70-ish. We're in the middle of updating the entire audit universe for the city for the next 5-year work plan. So that's one of the big projects we have for the next year, citywide risk assessment. And at the current rate, it takes us 10 years to recycle the audit already. So if we were to bring it down, that's not great for the city. And what you're going to see is risks that's coming from places that we can't really get to in time. So we don't want the city to experience that.
Yeah.
And that's why I urge all of the audit committee members to really support that one lead internal auditor. That lead internal auditor, including programming fees, benefits, salary, professional training, and all of the staff is only $165,000 for the city, I think, because we haven't really ever met the IIA audit standards before. And with all the efforts we're putting in, if the city can support us, we can pretty much guarantee that we can pass the standards in August this year, the coming year. So.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you very much. So we have a motion moved by Member Russell to receive item 6.5 and move the strategy forward. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries. And with apologies to our Brampton Fire, we'll go back to item 6.2, staff report titled Fire Fleet Asset Management 2024 Audit Report. We have a presentation. I'll allow staff to deliver that.
Good morning. I would like to introduce the audit team, and it's Mia Tree, audit manager, and Sahil Sharma, lead internal auditor, and Varun Iyer, lead internal auditor. And I would like to also take this opportunity to thank the staff from Fire and Emergency Services who worked closely with our audit team. And that starts with Nick Ruler, the chief of fire, Dwayne Jason, division chief, apparatus and maintenance, Perry Hirtis, assistant division chief, apparatus and maintenance, and Andrew Van Hout, deputy fire chief. The fire and emergency services staff attending the meeting in person in this chamber. Now I would like to pass it to Sahil to present the audit backgrounds, objectives, scope, conclusion, followed by Chief Ruler, who will present the management action plans. Sahil, please take it from here.
Thank you, Claire. Next slide. Next slide. Audit objectives. Assess whether fire has policies and procedures for fire fleet asset management that are aligned with city bylaws, corporate policies, for example, strategic asset management policy and relevant regulations. Assess whether fire asset management processes are effectively designed and implemented to ensure compliance and manage key risks across the asset lifecycle. Slide. Scope and methodology. Our audit scope covered fire fleet asset management from June 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2024. The audit methodology included a review of relevant regulations and policies and standard operating guidelines, a review of M5 utilization and record retention, interviewing staff, analyzing fire fleet management and maintenance data, site visits, and inventory count. Audit conclusion. The following improvement opportunities were identified. First one, strengthening preventative maintenance practices. Preventative maintenance intervals should be clearly defined based on manufacturers' recommendations for each vehicle type, formally documented and consistently followed. Improve M5 usage for effective fire fleet asset management. Staff should be trained and support to fully utilize M5 capabilities, ensuring M5 is utilized as a central platform to record, track, and retain essential fire fleet asset data, as well as for improved oversight and decision-making. Next, improve documentation on asset planning and disposal. Fire services staff should establish a comprehensive policies and procedures to define documentation standards and accountability for asset management activities, ensuring records are complete, current, and accessible. Improve equipment tracking. Equipment should be consistently tracked in M5 system to ensure accurate and complete asset record keeping. Strengthen standard operating guideline, SOGs. SOGs should be regularly reviewed and updated to reflect current practices and provide relevant guidance. Additionally, they should include detailed procedures to support the consistency and standardization of fire fleet asset management practices. Finally, enhance fire vehicle inspection retention. A process for retaining fire vehicle inspection records should be established and documented, including retention requirements, permanent fleet ID assignment, and spare vehicle usage documentation. Now I will hand it over to Fire Chief to discuss the action plans.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'm just going to, first I'll go through the management action plans for the audit recommendations, and I'd like to thank Claire and her team. It was a very productive process. We had identified a handful of items over the last 12 months that required attention. A fair amount of them have been captured as part of this, but our initial focus was on to address some challenges that we had with some items related to health and safety related items. So those were kind of prioritized, and then these items here were part of our work plan. So I'll speak to the recommendations. The first was to strengthen the preventative maintenance practices, and the original approach to the fleet over the years has been traditional diesel and gasoline vehicles, and as a result, there was a standard approach to preventative maintenance practices based on mileage and use. And we've seen a pretty significant diversification of our fleet over the past 10 to 15 years, including hybrid technology, electric vehicle technology. And so one of the recommendations here was to review the preventative maintenance practices and in turn move away from the standardized approach and get back into a more targeted preventative maintenance practice that gives consideration to the diverse aspects of the fleet. So the timeline for that was Q2 of 2025. And I'll go to the next slide, please. So the next recommendation was to improve M5 usage for effective fire fleet asset management. So we're looking to fully integrate and utilize M5 Fleet Focus. That was not prioritized initially. We were running multiple platforms for the asset management, and became a little bit disjointed. So consequently, it kind of highlighted opportunities to expand the use of M5 and streamline our processes. We're looking at a timeline of Q2 of 2026 to complete this piece. It does involve a fairly significant amount of training for affected staff, as we'll be eliminating one of the duplicate platforms. So we can go to the next slide, please. So the third item was to improve documentation on asset planning and disposal. So the audit had found some misalignment between the current practices and the City of Brampton processes and policies. So one of the challenges that we identified is we do take a bit of a unique approach sometimes to our disposal of assets through donation processes. With over the past several years, we've donated several fire apparatus to First Nations communities, and we've utilized other agencies to assist in that.
Consequently, these processes tend to be lengthy, and our current SOGs don't take into consideration that process as far as the asset management, the disposal of the assets. So we'll look to revise our SOGs to better align with the current practice as far as donations goes. So again, that is, timeline was Q2 of 2025 for that. Next slide. So the fourth was equipment tracking. So the equipment for our emergency vehicle technicians was not incorporated into our M5 asset management system. So the previous focus has always been on fleet vehicles, not necessarily the equipment that we are utilizing within our apparatus and maintenance facility. So this here just involves a revision to the equipment tracking process and standard operating guidelines. And again, the timeline for that is Q2 of 2025. The fifth was to strengthen standard operating guidelines. So we needed to undertake a comprehensive review and perform a gap analysis to strengthen our existing standard operating guidelines. There's been, they've become somewhat dated, and they lack that consistency between current practice and best practice. So documentation processes just haven't kept pace with the growth of the fleet, and then the expansion of services and I believe I mentioned earlier the diversification of the fleet. So we're looking to perform a comprehensive review. With that, we'll include proper targeted review dates for future SOGs to aid in ensuring that they stay relevant throughout their life cycle. This process is fairly comprehensive. We're looking at Q3 of 2026 for completion. And just for clarity, the reason that Q3 of 2026 is these SOGs are interrelate to operating guidelines and across the department. So it's a little bit more in depth than simply focusing just on the apparatus and maintenance. We'll have to look at how they interrelate and integrate into our existing operating guidelines across the organization. So, and then last slide. Last recommendation. So enhance fire vehicle inspection record retention. So in order to extend the life cycle of fire apparatus, they are often reassigned throughout their lifespan. And we identified through the audit process a challenge in the collection of some of the records that pertain to the life cycle of the apparatus. So we've identified an opportunity to provide a permanent fleet number to these vehicles so that we can in turn ensure that we're able to maintain the records throughout the life cycle of the vehicle, regardless of where it's assigned at what point. So these process changes will be implemented early in 2025 and will address, will help us then better locate and retain the fire vehicle inspection records for future use. So, and that is it for the 6 action plans. I'll turn it back over to Steve.
Thank you so much, Nick. Just moving on, next steps. As action plans have been developed, implementation is underway or completed. Internal audit will follow up in the report on the status of these action plans. Next slide. That concludes the presentation, and thank you so much, and I'll open it for questions now.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Chief. We have questions. Member Russell.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you to both Internal Audit and the Fire Chief for that comprehensive update. I learned a lot. I looked up how much a tire changer cost for fire trucks and what a parallelogram was in the context of fire, so appreciated that. And in the course of trying to understand that, I was curious if there is going to be a dollar threshold implemented for the tracking of items in M5, because I can imagine it could get quite onerous with just the sheer amount of equipment. So are you implementing kind of a dollar threshold that says anything above this amount will be implemented in the system? or recorded in the system?
I might just lean on Division Chief Chazon. He would be able to comment specifically on how granular the tracking is of the actual assets within M5.
Hello. Through the chair, yes, we're looking at $1,000.
$1,000? Okay. Thank you.
Member Russell, through the chair, I do want to kind of supplement that answer. You probably are aware that we had a report called Small Asset Tools Management. This was an audit report that I think it was Q2 or Q3. Q2 is June, I think, right? So in that particular report that talks about the entire city's asset management, so we are establishing threshold through that giant process, and the fire finding is just one of the, kind of similar finding that it will be addressed probably through that giant exercise.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. So we have report 6.2 on Fire Fleet Asset Management 2024 Audit Report. I'll ask Councillor Paleshi to move the report and the recommendations in there. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Next, we have member question period. Do any members have questions with regards to today's meeting? Seeing none, we'll move on to public question period. Madam Clerk, are there any questions from members of the public with respect to today's meeting?
Through Chair, I'm not seeing any requests or questions online.
Very good, thank you. No questions in the gallery, so we'll next move on to closed session business. Item 11, I have a motion moved by Councillor Tour to move into closed session to deal with the following item. Item 11.1, Cybersecurity Audit 2024 for open meeting exception under Section 2392A of the Municipal Act 2001, the security and property of the municipality or local board. All in favor, any opposed? That carries. To members of the public watching today's meetings, all meetings of committee must start and end in public session. After closed session is completed, committee will reconvene here in public session to complete its business on today's agenda, including reporting out on any actions arising from the closed session portion of the meeting and to adjourn the meeting. And so for that, Madam Clerk, how much time do you need?
10 minutes.
Okay, we will reconvene at 10:40. Members of Audit Committee, we have quorum, we're all here. So in the continuing interest of transparency and open government, I will report in public session any outcomes from today's closed session business. And as a result of our closed session today, I would like to report that item 11.1, Cybersecurity Audit for 2024, was received. Our last item of business is item 12, adjournment. Our next scheduled meeting will be on Tuesday, February 11, 2025. I have a motion moved by Member Russell to adjourn today's meeting. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. This meeting is now adjourned. Have a wonderful day.